first of all, this is continuation of our scaling up. This is the Shera day when I'm recording this session. So by the time you look at it, it'll be past Dashera. So belated happy Dashera and happy Vijayadashmi to all of you. And this also happens to be, the day when people worship the goddess of learning, Saraswati. It's an icon for learning, Vidya, knowledge, wisdom, all of that put together. And it's very appropriate that we are going through an important program for learning many things under e-Yantra, eYIC, and we should be serious and sincere about it and get the maximum from this program as engineering students, because many of these things will come handy to you, not just for your graduation, for the rest of your life. If you recall, we had gone through two case studies or two scenarios, one for Atreya, the Nari Pariksha, and the second one was Mojo Networks. And now I want to, and we've been through the B2B, B2C, and different types of enterprise. Do you sell direct? Do you sell? Do you sell it to business? Do you sell it to consumers? Do you sell it to business who in turn sell it to consumers? Is it a product company? Is it a service company? All of that we have covered up until now. So we want to turn our attention to channel model, direct sales, kind of companies that are involved, and get you some information, basic information around it. There is a lot of things that may be relevant to you, may not be immediately relevant, but they all become relevant over a period of time. And I'm always very focused on making sure that any bachelor or a master's program in the academic setting, you absorb as much of information, knowledge about the subject matter as you can, because you do not know at what stage in your life, in your professional career, you will need a body of knowledge. And if you have studied it at a very young age during your graduation, that's the best time to learn and preserve that knowledge so that it can be handy, rest of the life. Let us see what is a direct sale. Direct sale means you sell it to the user, direct to the customer, direct to the user who consume your product or services. If you sell it to a partner, that means you sell it to a company or an individual who turns sell it to make a sale to the end user. Now, let's take a B2B model. And if you're selling, for example, Mojo Networks, and you have a system integrator or a value-added reseller, and we'll come to some of these terms a little bit later, not to worry about it. So they go and sell it to a large company who want the wireless or wireless security gear. Or if you look at the Nari Pariksha, somebody sells it to a hospital, and they sell it to a company, and who in turn have done business with the hospital. It is a channel sale. But if you sell it direct, where you get the purchase order from the end user organization, it's a direct sale. Okay, it's very important to understand certain businesses are more amenable to channel. Their success depends on a lot of channel partners. In certain businesses, their DNA is direct sale. And it's not as black and white, channel versus direct. Both get intermixed, but there is always a gravity of one of them in the long-term steady state model. So if you try to abstract it out, direct sale is typically large service companies, large enterprise. It could be online or offline. So companies like IBM, Accenture, they would, TCS, for example, they would do direct sale to their customers. They'll get a purchase order, they'll sign a contract with them. On the other hand, channel sales are often product companies where they build channel to sell. So we call it as like 1,000 arms selling your product through partners. And it is important to understand both of them. These are often B2B. It applies to both B2B and B2C products. It could be online or offline. And the reason I'm saying online or offline is that while online may differ little bit in terms of how you implement these things, on the concepts are very, very similar. The DNA is quite similar in terms of the core model, but you'll have to implement it whether somebody is purchasing online or somebody is purchasing offline. That's basically what it is. Okay. Reminder arrow for us, which says that founders mix and match everything, and that is perfectly legitimate. In the early stages of the company, our challenge is to make sure that as the company grows, we understand the models that kick in with the scaling up, and then we steer the company towards those models to create a large, scalable enterprise. And that's very important. So now let us look at channel sales model. Okay. So you will assume that you have an equipment that you make and you want to sell that equipment or a product, if I can call it. And let's say its applicability is global. Let's say you've designed a motor, you've designed a networking gear, you've designed something which can be used by anybody around the world. Okay, so you would appoint resellers in different geographies, and those resellers would know different organizations in their sphere of influence, and they go and sell it to those customers, I would call it. Okay. This is a two-tier model, means your company, I'm calling it OEM, original equipment manufacturer. That's a very popularly used term for the companies that actually design and build and manufacture the original equipment. So for example, Cisco is an original OEM for networking gear. Mojo Networks is an OEM for wireless or wireless security gear, so on and so forth. Boeing is a OEM for commercial aircrafts and stuff like that. So you sell it to a customer through a reseller. That's a two-tier. There are only two tiers, yourself and your reseller. Okay. Now, this is a three-tier model where you have a distributor. So you give it to the distributor and the distributor sells it to reseller. We would call it a three-tier model. Let's look at the two-tier model. Quick to implement, you have to go find some resellers, and it's a good early stage strategy. You can, wherever you're operating from, let's say you're operating from India and you want to kick in the channel model and you know few people who are resellers, it's easier to sign them up and get them to start selling your product before you expand. So it's a very good strategy. I call it home market. Let's say if you're California headquartered company or London or Cambridge headquartered company or Singapore headquartered company, then you'll probably find a reseller in that particular market, which would be your home market before you go international, is what I'm saying. And it could be anywhere. And home markets could be two. Mojo Networks, we always said we had two homes. One is United States, where we were headquartered, and India, where most of the work was being done. So we had two, India and US, both were homes. So we had two-tier model for a long period of time in both the places. But if you look at three-tier model, let's say you, and this is a real life that has happened to me. I got a lead from Africa, and the CIO was very well informed. He was an African, very educated. He called me up. He said, "I've come to know about your company, and we would like to look at, your wireless, scalable wireless with security." And so in a situation like that, where you are dealing with a territory with which you are not familiar with, it's a good idea to look at a distributor who will then pretty much proxy you or represent you in that territory. Now, that territory could be a country or a basket of countries or even a region within a country. For example, India, United States, these are Brazil, China, these are large countries, and you could have multiple distributors within these countries because of the size of the market, size of the geography. But assume that a small country, you have one distributor, and then that distributor will appoint or bring on board several resellers who would then go out and sell it to the customer. So scaling as distributors. Now, since it's a unfamiliar territory, is one example I've taken. You could appoint a distributor when the volume has become too big in a two-tier territory also. When you want to go from, say, 10 resellers to 100 resellers, and there are distributors who have those kind of relationships. So in your home market itself, you can create a three-tier model. There are no yes and no kind of answers. These are all the calls you have to make. So you want to appoint who will appoint. Once you appoint a distributor, they will have their own ecosystem of resellers for your kind of thing. They will also handle payments. Different parts of the world have different sort of etiquette, rules, customs for payment, and you want to make sure that you comply with them. At the same time, there is some insurance in case the payments are delayed. There is someone who will take care of your payment while they'll collect from the customer or the market later, or even with a discount and stuff like that. But you must get your payment by and large. So that distributors are amazing for those things. Local conditions. Some countries, AMC may be difficult. AMC means annual maintenance contract. Your equipment, you have sold an equipment and one of that equipment goes faulty, and the customer is under annual maintenance or a warranty. Now, how do you go through the process of getting that equipment back to you and send a replacement equipment? Some countries can be easy, some countries can be difficult, some countries you may have to follow a different process. It could be different for different regions and geographies. So it's important that you have someone who understands the stuff in the local geography, so that these kind of services could be provided. Why channel? If you're selling a product, the ticket size, unlike a service company, is small. So in a service company, you get a project for, let's say, $100,000, and there's another company. Let's take two service companies, one service company, one product company. And so service company has sold its first project, got a first project for $100,000, roughly about 70 lakhs, 75 lakhs. And there is another company which is a product company, and they have built a equipment, and each equipment is sold for, let's say, 25 lakhs. So they sell three of those, and you get 75 lakhs. Here, one project is 75 lakhs. Little bit of a time passes, and the customer to the service company says, "Oh man, you guys are good. I have you have 2-3 more projects which are lined up, and I'm going to give it to you. One of them, by the way, is $250,000 is one budget for it, and there's another one that may run for 3 years with about $200,000 a year." Now the service company's lead will look like $250,000 one project and $600,000, 200 every year for next 3 years. Now they're almost reaching 1 million. Now, if you're selling a product for $25,000, you need 40 of those, 40 sale, not just 3 sales as you have seen in a service company, to get to $1 million. So you need more hands selling your solution, typically in case of equipment or a product. And therefore, channels are important, because channels can bring large number of opportunities in front of you in different geographies, in different markets, and they also have a deeper market reach, better market understanding, what works, what doesn't work. You want to note that it's not just a technical feature. If it were a technical feature, many more companies would have been successful in the market. There is a complex dynamics that plays out when you get to the market and try and sell your product and services. So understanding that is also very, very important. And then you need local contacts. You need local contacts, local customs. You want to make sure that you know how to, have the drinks of that choice. You want to have a sake in Japan versus gin and tonic somewhere else, versus Belgian beer to, a chai on a katta in India, and so on and so forth. So all of these are very, very, or coffee in, India itself, different parts of the country, you'll have different customs. And local contacts are important. Language plays a very important role. If you're in Africa, if you're in Europe, if you're in India, Far East, multiple languages exist, and you want people who understand those languages to be able to connect with the companies in that market. So it's very important that these three or four things that make you need partners to sell. Challenge is often enabling partner to sell like the core team. Being a founder, being a part of the core team, you have refined the way of presenting the product and services to your marketplace. So that body of knowledge is very sharp, very intense, and you have refined it over a period of time. It's like a mature pickle or a mature wine. It tastes good, it works, and now you're transiting to somebody else selling your product and services. How do you coach, train those people that they look like you, they are your proxy as founders, that when they talk to consumers, customers, it doesn't look like somebody else is in between is talking, but it looks exactly coming from the founders or the core team. So that is a challenge that you have to build. You have to build programs to make this happen. And this is a good problem to have. When you reach this point, that means you have some success in the marketplace. You're all students, but trust me, those of you who bubble to the level where you've got funding, you've got a minimum value offering, and you've made some sales, and now you're ready to look for scale up, you will be confronted with this. Why don't you build channels? There is a query from East Europe. Why don't you appoint a distributor in East Europe, and so on and so forth. These things founders always face, and they have to grapple with. Okay? I want to talk a little bit about value-added partner, and probably I might give some examples here. Why? So you have a reseller who could buy it from you and sell it to the customer and take a commission in between for a set of services. They'll go collect money. They'll pay you on time, but they get paid late. They'll do all the laborious, diligent work. They may do a POC. They may put an engineer on site. Whatever else is necessary, they will do that in order to make sure that your product gets sold. Now, what is a value added reseller offers? You're a startup. You have something which is different than the rest, and you want resellers who have the capability to evangelize a new company, not an HP, not a Cisco, not an IBM, and so on, and not a SAP, but a brand new company. How do you tell a potential customer that, here is this XXX company, which nobody knows, but they have wonderful founders and great first product. They don't have all the features, but you want to try that. Now, something like that is a value they offer, which is typically what founders would do. Technical competence, trust me, the technical competence even your salespeople will have. Sometimes partners don't have it. They depend on OEM for all of that. They have given a dedicated team because it will take more time to get these kind of sales done first time. And therefore, it is important to have a dedicated team. And if it is a product that requires deployment and post-deployment support, then a value-added reseller should have the necessary resources and the capability to provide this kind of support. For example, a new ERP system has hit the market to compete with SAP. And there is a value-added reseller who is selling it. Now, that value-added reseller must have enough competence to be able to position this new ERP system against SAP, so that people who have learned about SAP and Oracle are encouraged enough to try this new XXX startup. That's very, very important. Okay, and so that is and then once they deploy the system, the startup would have the deployment expertise and the post-deployment support. If something doesn't work, or they more than something not working, my experience has been very first time when a customer takes a product or service to use, they don't know how to use different features or what exists. It's like you're getting into a sophisticated car. You don't know all the knobs at that particular point in time. You got the car rolling because you have a driver's license, but you do not know every little feature that is there. And we grapple with it with new mobile phones, new laptops, stuff like that, where there are a plethora of features, but we don't know how to use them. So that kind of support is also very much needed. What is a value-added distributor? Not very different. They will pretty much proxy the OEM. They'll behave like they are the OEM, evangelize like value-added resellers do. They will also engage into promotion and brand building. So you have to make some heavy hitting sales. So distributors will try and put a strategy together to make those sales so that the new OEM is now visible to the market. And we all say that, oh, this is a new equipment or a new product that has come out, and so is the distributor. And therefore, I have an expectation that that distributor will build the overall competency in this new OEM to be able to sell in the market. Technical competence, dedicated team, OEM trucks. They'll take care of payments. Certain parts of the world, payments don't come. They come in bulk, but quite irregularly. Some markets is 45 to 60 days. Some markets is 15 to 30 days. So payments are an issue. The local regulatory compliance can be tricky, and even pricing also can be very, very tricky. In which case you will have to figure out how to do these in different markets and different geographies and different set of customers, and that's where the value-added distributors come. So if you put your product on Amazon, Flipkart, what are they? Do they need a distributor then, or you can just put it on and they become your distributor? That's a good question to ask. So you build a mobile app. Let's say you built you put together a new feature-rich phone. Can you sell it on Amazon, or you need a distributor? It's a good question to ask yourself. I want to talk a little bit about scaling methods here. We went through the go-to-market strategy, and basic scaling is you want to expand the customer number of customers is what basically defines. You want to get that. You want to get a dominant share of the market in which you are playing, and you want to increase the market itself, because all startups, independent of their audacity and everything, first address a subset of a potential market. I've seen founders say, this particular market is $10 billion, $20 billion, $5 billion. This is a worldwide market. All that is fine. But you have a minimum value product, limited resources. Which part of that big ocean or big market are you going to focus on? It could be just geography, that this is a worldwide applicable product, but right now I am only focusing on North Mumbai, or I'm only focusing on Mumbai, or right now I'm only focusing on downtown business district of New York or Nariman Point, which is where I'm going to focus on selling. Or my consumer set is limited to, say, a city of Surat. I'm not selling my, consumer product beyond Surat, because I belong to Surat, and for next 6 months, that's what I'm. One of the founders that we will talk about, she is anchored on Nagpur right now. So she has done good job in Nagpur, and she wants to. There is enough potential there. So for her, while her offering is not just pan India but global, but she's right now focused on Nagpur. So that kind of strategy, and then from there you expand customers, expand market, expand products. So there's a bunch of stuff that you do. Repeat purchase. Please remember that, especially in the enterprise sale, as well as consumer, I must add, as well as consumer, I'll talk about it based on my experience with talking to some of the founders and what they've done. Repeat purchases by large corporations is a given thing. For example, in Mojo Networks, we will not get Wi-Fi coverage for the entire company. There were probably 1 in 2 years somebody gave us a $1 million+ purchase order saying cover our 15 offices. Most of the time it was, what I want to do? I want to take our corporate office, and I want to take this location and that location. By the way, I have a budget for 50 lakhs. Let's do that first, and let's see how it goes. That happens, then they will give us another one, then another one, then another one. So repeat purchases helps you to scale up. And trust me, it is so easy to sell to an existing customer than create a new customer. Having said that, If you keep selling to only your existing customer, then you will have very few customers, with some organizations giving you a large chunk of your sales revenue. And if you have any intent of selling the company, getting strategic investment, your value will go down. So you need to scale up, and scale up means selling more to current customers, at the same time being very aggressive to create new customers, so that there's an overall expansion. Like, you talk to any astronomer, people who are interested in galaxy, they say the universe is expanding. I have never understood, that I cannot fathom a universe, with its limits or limitless. But if you say, last year I had 10 customers, and now I have, by the way, 25 customers. But from those 10 customers, I have increased my revenue by 150%. So we have grown like 4 times. But my first set of customers have given me so much of business. Perfectly fine. That's the kind of conversation that are pleasant to investors, founders themselves, and stuff like that. Annual contract. Sometimes customers give you, the nature of the sale is such that they give you, the contract is signed for a period of time. Let's say you've sold a product, and you're not asked them for one lump sum money, but they're going to pay you over a period of time, and that expands. So now renewals will happen of the current contract. They'll sign more contracts. So all of this finally brings more money in the bank, and that's expanding. Deeper penetration. So there are groups, and I take the Indian example, B2B, and then we'll come to B2C also. That Aditya Birla Group, Tata Group, Reliance, these are large corporates with multiple companies. And let's say you start with one company, and that company, is very happy with you, and they take you to the corporate head office, and corporate office says, by the way, we need similar products in our other companies, and you go and pitch to other companies. Now that's a deeper penetration within that. So large corporations can be marketplace within themselves. Sometimes young founders do not understand that if I have gotten into Google, IBM, Tata, Aditya Birla Group, Reliance, and many, many, many more large companies around the world, their marketplace. Governments are a full marketplace. So that deeper penetration, more use case. More use case is very, very important. Your product services multiple use cases, and now the customer is expanding that. Expanding into customer ecosystem, as I mentioned, you need account management, vertical geographies. You can target logos that this year now, besides India, I'm going to focus on Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia. And by the way, I have targeted these 25 B2B companies, or these 10 banks, or government of Singapore, or Indonesian government, whatever be your target logos. Now that you target, and that's increasing the basket, that's increasing the market. You've been selling online, and I asked a question, in the previous slide, are you going to put it on Amazon or Flipkart? And let's say you start doing that, and you're very successful, but you also now have to sell offline. That means through the stores, through the channel. So adding offline to online, and online to offline. So you've been selling offline, you've been traditional seller, traditional ways to sell, but now you've added online channel, white labeling. That means somebody else will put a brand on your product, so it'll be white labeled. So I build a wireless access point and give it to, let us say, somebody else, and they put their logo on it, and they sell it. And that's perfectly fine. White labeling with very established place in the market gets you loads of revenue. There are some pitfalls also, and we may talk about it, but I might cover it sometime there. And building partners. So there are multiple scaling methods. Okay. Going further, you may introduce more products. For example, in Mojo, we introduced wireless access point a few years after our wireless security sensor. So we started selling wireless security as well as wireless access point. So it just opened up a very different market for us. If you look at a company like Oracle, from database, they have come all the way to the enterprise resource planning and a bunch of other things they offer. So they brought new offerings in the market by building it internally, or acquiring companies and putting them in the market. Cisco has done the same thing. HP has done the same thing. So it's very, very important to understand that new offerings can be can it be a way to expand a market? It could be supplementary products. Bombay Shaving is a good example. You should go to their website, and they first introduced a razor. They introduced, beard products, and then they introduced soap, and then just one after another products come out. Accessories you can sell. Wrap around service is a very important one that product requires. Like we talked about SAP deployment, that could be a wrap around service. 24 by 7 monitoring. Some of these are very well known services which either you do it or get a partner to do it, or you outsource it. Either way, it's expansion. Rebranding, repositioning is also a way for mature companies. You can scale up by withdrawing a product and putting your focus on a particular limited set of products so that your volume goes up. Sometimes it's possible that some products may not meet your requirement and it's time to withdraw them from the market. You want to exit part of market. For example, Tasty Bite. They were ready to go food and they had 70-80% of the India market, in the 90s or somewhere around that. And they decided to exit India market and focus on international market, United States, Australia. Now, their business grew significantly by focusing on international market. So exiting a market could also be a way to do that. In the whole process, you will always have competition. You will have the scope where you are selling your products. As founders, our objective should be to grow the current perimeter, means your basket of customer, your market, your access to the market, what you're covering must expand, that perimeter must expand. And if possible, you try and put the competition in the corner. Try and shrink their market, means you get to a point where you've taken away competitors' market and competitors feel that they need to exit that part of the market because you have become a dominant player. So in your thought process, it is very important to bring in, if I'm going to expand, am I pushing a competitor out? It's not different than sports is a very good analogy for how you play. So if you're a cricketer and you're batting, your idea is not just to bat, but tire out the bowler. Or vice versa, you're an excellent bowler and there is Tendulkar playing or Kohli playing, you want to tire them out so that they lose their concentration, they make a mistake. Or there's a break, or there is something happens, new ball is taken, and now you go with a hammer and tongs and get the person out. So very similar that you have to shrink the competitor's perimeter while you expand your perimeter. There are times when the market has a tailwind, that means the market itself is growing, so you have few competitors and everybody grows, that's fine too. But if the market is limited and you're playing in that market, it's important to make sure that you expand your market at the same time you shrink somebody else's market.